that works. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Ted Eckers. I'm the president of the Historical Society. This is a very exciting event for us, so thank you all for coming. I wanted to first, before I forget, thank a few people who were instrumental in setting this up. So Jeannie Anderson, one of our trustees, Sue Ainsworth, Bonnie Brinkman, thank you so much for doing this. If you've ever planned an event, you know how much work goes into it, and it was just 2 months ago when we came up with the idea to do it. So this was record time to do this, so thank you. And we have snacks in the back, generously provided by various places around town, Honey and Rye, Nelson's, CVS, Cub Foods, Jennings, Byerly's. So thank you to all those sponsors who provided that. And you can also learn a little bit about the Historical Society, about what we're doing. This is a big event for us, and we're looking to do more programming in the future. So I encourage you to go on our website, on our Facebook page, and just learn about us and kind of keep tabs of us and listen for more programs in the future. Also wanted to thank our kind of big sponsors, Discover St. Louis Park, our Visitors Bureau, very, very generous donation to help us pull this off, so thank you to them. The School District 283, who provided us this space and the setup and everything, so thank you to them. And to the fire department, who brought Molly, the 1928 fire engine out there. If you haven't seen it yet, you'll see it on the way out. That was a lot of fun. My kids are in the back. They had a lot of fun with that. We're recording for community TV, so we're going to replay this on community TV. It's another thing we're trying to do is provide more programming for the community. So if you had to leave early and want to see the end of it, you can watch it on TV, or if you know a friend, point them to it. And then Emery is here with the camera. He will be taking some still photos of people as they are introducing their item. So don't be surprised if someone's taking your photo. It's just we want to remember the event and kind of get it in the whole production here. I think that is the main stuff. So I was going to then introduce our appraisers from Appraisal Specialists Midwest. We have Bonnie Lindberg. Thank you for coming. I'm going to let you guys do maybe a little intro on yourselves, and James Marinan and Kevin Callahan, who have done events like this in the past, so they know how to run this. They will introduce in a minute, and then I will be walking around the audience, and as an object comes up here, I will find you in the audience, and I'll ask you to tell a little bit about your object. If you already know what you think it's worth, that's helpful to let's not, try to trick the appraisers. If you know something, say something. And maybe state your name if that would be helpful too.
Chair?
But we call it fateuil, F-A-U-T-E-U-I-L. I think I spelled it right, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's a French term, fateuil, the fauteuil arm, but not a toy. This is
Okay,
a real
good. I know
size.
it's, hi, I'm Catherine. I know it's in rough shape. This probably came from my great-grandmother, and now I'm taking it upon myself to restore it. I don't know anything about it, so I'm hoping you can give me some information.
See, it's a wonderful example of kind of a French Louis XV revivals type. They were making those about 1910 to maybe about 1925. Certainly a worthy candidate for restoration in the condition that it's in. If I went to a shop, I probably would be looking at, let's say, about 165, 175. Now, when those are restored, gosh, you could be, of course, you can put a lot of money into it, but you're probably looking at more $400 to $500.
There were no markings on it as far as who manufactured it?
That's very common.
Typical?
Every now and then you're really lucky in furniture to find a maker, but that was not typical at that time.
Yes.
F-A-U-T-E-U-I-L, fateuil.
And whose plaques are these?
Those tiles came from my grandmother.
Okay.
And they are from Germany they're, because of the tag on the back. I believe, does it say Rosenthal?
Yes.
Yes. I believe that my aunt or uncle brought them from Germany to my grandmother, and I'm interested to know if they are pre or post World War II.
I have a price.
Yeah, I would say they are pre-World War II. Because, for example, they don't say West Germany on them. If they said West Germany,
Okay.
definitely after the war.
Yeah.
I'm seeing these estimated at auction for, I wasn't able to get the results, but for $200 to $300 a piece. They're signed by an artist named Lazarus who was working for Rosenthal. They would hire known artists of the time to do hand-painted items for them. Really pretty.
Wow,
Wonderful,
they're
thank you.
very, very vivid. Whose lovely kettle on stand is this? This is a wonderful piece.
I got that from my great-grandfather too, originally, where it came from.
Now, the marks on this are kind of unusual. It's not sterling, but it has a Scottish mark on it. It has a thistle. You don't see a lot of these with this, but it's a melon form, and it's a copy of a style that was very popular in the late 1700s. So it's a Georgian revival piece, and it is the whole kettle on stand, and actually you could pour it. In some cases,
It's on there backwards.
is it on backwards?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yes, here, we put it on here. Oh, and wait a second. Okay. Okay, patent applied for, yes, so this would be a 20th century one. And there you go, see, so you could pour. You could pour with it. And they are wonderful, the kettles on stand like that. And, the plate appears to be in terrific condition. I would date this probably about, I think, let's say 1900 to 1920. It's a wonderful Edwardian piece. I would expect to see this in a shop probably for about $150 to $170. I have one like that. I just love it. It's terrific. And you even have the burner.
Oh, yeah.
You have the whole enchilada.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whose statue is this?
Actually, it's a bank.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's my husband's, who's sitting right here, and he got it when he was a child and put his money in it.
This is wonderful, and it is a commemorative for President Kennedy with his dates 1917 to 63. I remember as a kid when the Ben Franklin Savings and Loan had similar ones of Ben Franklin. The Ben Franklin ones are much more common than this. This wouldn't have been around very long. And as a Kennedy collectible, I could see this maybe for $40 to $50. Ben Franklin might only be about $25.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Who could tell us about this wonderful thermometer barometer storm guide? Wow, this is really something. Look at the beautiful inlays on this, and they have a date of 1927 on it. Wow.
My name is Mark Turetsky, and that was I inherited that from my grandma when she passed away in 1986. And the only things I know about it is it has a copyright date of 1927 on it, and I've done a little bit of research, and I've seen other barometers going from the mid-hundreds to a couple $1,000s. So I don't know exactly what it's worth.
We were just looking at the back on here. Have you checked the back out on it too?
I have, and I noticed there's a number up above where the gentleman's hand is, and I was wondering what does that mean?
That's probably a production number, a production on the case itself. They'd have a separate number. They might even have a separate style of case that they would put different fittings with. Well, when I'm looking at that, I would be more inclined, again, whatever homework that you can do, any research. Again, we have limited resources here for doing this, but if I were to see this and somebody told me that's about a $650 to $700, we have seen similar things for that. Now, to get higher than that, you'd have to really go in and really do even more detailed research on it. But it's a wonderful example of, it's kind of a colonial Georgian revival style, almost a banjo-type model that was very fashionable in, well, really even the late 19th and early 20th century. Somebody has a lovely platform rocker here, too.
Again, this rocker belonged to my great-grandmother. It was, when I got it, it was pretty much in shreds. So this was my first and only attempt at ever refinishing it. So it's kind of tacky. But from pictures and things, I can verify that it's at least 125 years old, probably closer to 150.
See, I was going to say, no, that wasn't a platform rocker. I was mistaken before in making that statement, but I'm looking at the style of this, and I'm thinking about probably the mid-1870s to mid-1880s
It
on
could
that
be.
period. So that's probably, we're about in the same period
Uh-huh.
in that late
Okay.
Victorian time. And actually, you did a darn nice job in putting it back together again. It's very
Well,
handsome.
thank you.
Yeah, I would
My
expect-
mother always referred to it as a sewing rocker.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I could see, and it's, you know, ironically, some of those are still very comfortable. They are very comfortable. And look at the condition of that now. It's wonderful. You know, if I saw that, if we had a sale or something going on, probably about 225, 250.
Okay. Incidentally, on one of the runners, there is a metal plate. And there's a story for that. I guess when my older sister was little, she was really rocking and getting it going. And it broke, so my dad had to fix it.
See, that is what makes a piece like that very, very special.
Right.
Super.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm kind of a pass.
And whose piece is on the easel?
Hi there, I'm Kari
Hi.
Soderholm. Yeah, that we inherited that from my in-laws. I don't know a whole lot about it, so. we got it
Okay.
recently.
I can't see, I mean, I see the signature. Okay.
I failed
Let's-
to show her the label
sorry.
on the back.
Okay,
Okay, I'm going to revisit this and talk about the watercolor first.
okay.
Sorry about that. The watercolor down there, okay. And whose watercolor? It's a Henry Rice? Oh, okay.
Yep.
American artist from 1853 to 1934. I'm seeing his watercolors at auction go for anywhere between $300 and $700. And again, we consider auction a market price, not an insurance price. There's one that sold for $2,400, but it was so above the estimate that you think two people wanted it for some unknown reason. But that's the range that I have for that artist. And while
Thank you.
James is talking about this, I'll look at this.
All right, thank you.
Whose are these? This is some very interesting photograph items. It's almost like you have the glass negatives or the glass plates as well as the vignettes that would surround them. I mean, it almost looks like items that would have been used in photography production.
Right, those, my mother found those in my grandma's stuff. She was born in the late 1800s. Her name was on the box, but we can't tell if the glass plates were part of her life or they predated her. But when I looked up tintype negatives and glass negatives, it said the glass negatives predated tintype.
Well, I'm looking at those, and I was looking at the styles of what people were wearing.
Right.
And they look to me late Victorian, maybe about like the 1890s,
Okay.
you know? And I would say on something like that, that's where you probably would have to do some research. What would the value be of something like that? Historically wonderful. It'd be wonderful if those photos could be reproduced from those, see what they were like. And then something will have more value. Now, if I went into a house sale and I saw a grouping like that and somebody said, you know, $80 to $100, I'd say fine.
Really? Okay.
But if you found a photography aficionado that really knew this, that's a whole different ballgame, because then, you know, it's target marketing, and then that person might have those for much more than that.
Once they're printed.
Once they're printed, and then
Okay.
a little more homework. And also, what are the subjects now if they're just people from the late 19th century? That's one thing. What if you have buildings or you have exterior scenes? It's like with postcards. That's what's going to find a greater audience.
Okay.
You know, what's interesting on that, I was just thinking with postcards, there was a capability in the early 20th century of taking glass plates like that and making postcards of your own family.
Really?
That's just a thought. It just occurred to me because I wondered how they made that, and maybe this might be a possibility.
Huh. What then, if instead of postcards, what would those little tiny folders pertain to? Because you couldn't possibly get one
No,
of.
those would have been probably snapshots. I've seen those of people where I've seen originals like that where they'll take the image and then that would be pasted onto that. That was the frame. That's the matting. Or the
Oh, okay.
And then they would have probably a metal or sometimes a leather type frame that they'd pop those into.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Okay, and then we have this piece by an artist named Margot Hoff from 1912 to 2008. And was this also inherited? It's interesting because when I look at her briefly, very briefly, look at her auction records, I'm seeing much more abstract work. Yes, And so I didn't see in my short research, are her earlier pieces worth more than what she was known for in the abstract? The abstract seemed to be going from about 400 to 800 again at auction. And once more, we'd want to spend a little more time investigating it, but a known artist. And I think, personally, I prefer this work. Very charming. Wow.
This is a tiered server. Now, can you tell us about this?
It's wiggly, I can tell you
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
don't tip it.
It is a little bit of a leaning tower of Pisa. I'm trying to figure out how to tighten it, but I bought it in Florida, Mount Dora, at a little antique shop. And it's very fascinating to me. It's all hand painted, as you can see. I have no idea what the composite material is for the trays, but all of that metal work it's a very heavy piece. Do you know anything at all about it?
Well, I'm looking at it, and I didn't see a made in wherever on it, did you? And what I'm saying, when I look at something like this, it reminds me stylistically of things that I've seen from Italy from that time, and maybe from the 20s and the 30s. It would have been a wonderful centerpiece on a table. You could have seen that as that. But I think it's of that period from Italy, 1920 to before World War II. And you would probably see that in a shop for, let's say, about $275 to $300.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes. And we have some autographs here. Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin.
There really isn't much to say. We got those from two different personal appearance tours in the 50s.
Okay.
One in Minneapolis and one in St. Paul. And I was just curious what they do.
Well, I'm seeing Jerry Lewis just alone. I'm seeing some things for sale at $350 to $450. So if we add Dean Martin, I didn't have a chance to look his signature up. You know, since they're together and they're related to this movie, you know, would we be talking about $800 to $900 on a retail level? We're kind of reaching a critical point. I know James talks about our kids don't know who these people are. And so we wonder what's going to happen in the future with autographs by actors of this era. But that's what I'm seeing right now.
Could you tell me if their autographs would be a copy or if it's actual?
Oh, thank you for saying that. It's a reproduction. Yep, I see dots. Thank you for saying that. So somewhere between $1 and $10.
Big difference. The signatures are reproductions.
Yes, they are.
They're neat though.
Somebody brought some wonderful selections of wood here. Wow. Now we have, I will show you, we have 3 items. We have one plate that is dated 1949 by George Williams. The same fellow. And then we have another one, but this one is dated 1900. So was that when he was very young?
He was a wood carver in Michigan. I got those. He was the grandfather of a friend of mine. And he was born probably about 1860, 70, something like that. That's the little match girl.
Oh, the little match girl is something, is really something.
Very nice. Oh,
Now
sure.
see this, and you look at the quality of carving on there. The carving all looks, I mean, somebody who is a trained carver. And I mean, this is an exquisite head, just exquisite. And in a shop, I would expect to see this. This is, you're getting into a realm of a work of art. Maybe would this be about $275 to $325 very easily because of look at the exquisite quality.
Beautiful.
Now, the plates would be lesser, obviously, and I'm thinking, are you talking about 75 to 85 apiece?
I also have all of his carving tools.
That is wonderful.
That I don't know.
Well, did you ever have a picture of this fellow? See, that's the thing that would be fun when we put together things like this and you have a name. That's where you, again, you try to take it a little further. All of a sudden you have the works of this fellow and you have a photo of him that goes with it. Yeah. If I found a period photo of him and I found a period frame, I'd put the two together with this. And
I might find something. He worked for a furniture company in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Well, that was famous up there for that. That's terrific. Oh. Oh, a steering. This is a tilting steering wheel. And whose is this? What can you tell us about that? Wow.
That I inherited from my great uncle who was born in about 1875. And we thought it was such an interesting piece. We couldn't figure out what you could use it for in this day and age. It does say 1920 to 1921. It's printed right on it. It has a key. So what can you tell me about it?
Wow, a tilting steering wheel. I wonder, was this part of, would it have been part of an early automobile? Now you see that, yeah, and you see, you're talking about the age of the Tin Lizzie. You know, you're talking about really right after World War I. Now, how many have survived in this condition where the wood and the grips and everything are like that? And, I mean, I would be taking a look at this from the standpoint of automobile parts from that period, and they can be very pricey. And a steering wheel would be, it's a decorative item in and of itself. Is this a $500 item? It wouldn't surprise me. Could it possibly be more? Yes. But I would be looking into that from the standpoint of an antique auto parts. It's wonderful because just think our first automobiles are the very late 1890s, so this is the first 20 years. That's an impressive piece.
I know, I've been in my house for 50 years too, so.
And it has the key to boot. That's wonderful.
I thought perhaps a bus or someone mentioned a fire truck just because of the weight of it, but
Wow.
it's quite the piece of hardware.
It really is. That really is. Now that, you know, it could have, that could have been a very early bus, you know, an industrial or a truck, something heavy that would have required something of that sort.
I'm going to have James look at this too. Whose piece is this?
That is mine, Marguerite.
And where did you get it?
I got it at a house sale in South Minneapolis when I was in my 20s. So,
Wow. Well, of course, Jenny Lind was,
yes.
she was everything.
Swedish Nightingale.
Yeah, the Swedish Nightingale. This is an interesting piece because part of it looks printed on material, but yet it's embellished with embroidery.
Yes, and the beads.
And the beads.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful piece. What are your suspicions?
Well, my suspicion is, it mentions that she visited the White House and performed for President Fillmore in the 1850s, which is true. P.T. Barnum brought her over here.
Yeah.
Now, my suspicion is, and she died in the late 19th century, I think this may have been done in the very late 1800s as a tribute to her, and it would have been under King Oscar II. Remember, think of the American-Swedish Institute, think of the Swedes coming to this country, and Jenny Lind would have been like the equivalent of an Elvis Presley of her day. Fantastic.
Yes.
And I think that's what you have here.
That's beautiful. What do you?
Well, my thoughts in terms of value of that, I think probably about $250.
Really beautiful. I mean, it's even if you don't know who it is or the history of it, it's just I think a really beautiful piece of art.
Mm-hmm. Would you tell me if I should reframe it, or I haven't opened it up?
I would reback it, wouldn't you?
Right, and it again should not be touching the glass.
So I should.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you have somebody that you would recommend for a 3D like that, where it's got?
I would say
anyone?
Any competent framer.
Oh.
There's quite a few out there now. There are some very high-end framers. Most good framers could take care of this. I wouldn't be concerned. You wouldn't have to bring it to a restoration person really to do that.
Okay.
And when we talk about moisture, the reason it happens is when temperatures change, the glass on the two sides are two different temperatures. And one side is going to collect condensation. So you always want that buffer between the art and the glass itself.
Okay. Thank you for the information.
That's a beautiful piece.
Yes, it certainly is. Oh, we have here a lovely Japanese ceramic pitcher, pottery pitcher, and a drinking glass. I presume there are other glasses to go with it?
There's 6 total. I just brought the one.
Wow, what can you tell us about them?
I got it from my grandmother. She always told me it was my great-grandmother's, and she called it their hot chocolate set.
Well, if I saw this, I would think more of like a lemonade set, and you have the beakers, and it does say Japan on it, so we know it had to be made after 1921. The McKinley Tariff required that things be marked made of whatever country in 1891. Well, at that time, Japan was known as Nippon. So between 1891 and 1920, things said made in Nippon. After that, you have this, and this actually has a very Art Deco look to it. I could see this in the early 1920s. Wonderful design on it. Very whimsical. And you have how many cups? Is it?
There's 6 total.
That's terrific. And I would expect to see that in a shop for probably about $170.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And whose violin?
Hello, my name is Bonnie Burton. That's my great-grandfather's violin, passed to my dad and in turn given to me. We don't know where he got it. He played, none of us play. And but what's interesting is that there's a label on the inside of the violin that says Joseph Guinarius. And I know in doing some research that there are a lot of fake Guinariuses.
Just like the Stradivariuses that were done by Sears Roebuck.
You're
You had
right,
all
right.
kinds of them. Now, sometimes the whole secret is, if it were to say made in Germany, then all bets are off. And I'm looking at this, it does say Guinarius made it at Cremona, Italy in the year 17 blank, but we don't know. You don't know. They did some very nice examples of these at the end of the last century. Well, actually, no, the end of the 19th century, late 1800s. And I'm looking at the case. I don't know if it may have been the original case. Let's say if it was one of those adaptations that was done in the late 19th century. Even those, I've seen some of them going for $700, $800. I wish the fellow, well, I mentioned Willie's Guitars to you. There used to be Amundsen's violin shop there, and there is another violin store in St. Paul where I think he's on Grand near Fairview, where you could probably pinpoint that for you. That's what I would recommend. Just in case, by some happenstance, it was an 18th century. I have my own suspicion that may not be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And whose book is, I will, before, while James is looking at this, there are some prints in here. They are just more decorative reproductions.
Okay.
I have here a wonderful book. It's called The Book of Minnesota, published in 1903 by the Pioneer Press. That's the year Governor Ramsey died, and this is a terrific book and in really pretty good condition. And it shows in here illustration of the Capitol that was soon to be completed. Of course, it's Cass Gilbert's Capitol that is now shrouded in scaffolding. Wonderful book. Whose is this?
That is mine also.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful piece. Wonderful. And boy, I would think, in terms of Minnesota items like that, it would not surprise me to see this for about $300 or $325. It's in really good shape, and the illustrations are great. But that again is because how many have survived like this and the size of this and in that condition?
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to get them down to about a $50 level.
Yeah. Well, it would take you about an hour to, look through it.
That is very tempting. It's alluring, and somebody
Yes.
took very good care of it.
Thank you.
And whose painting is on the easel?
That would be mine. Yeah, what it is, it's a copy made by a starving artist, a Belgian starving artist in the 1930s. That's about all I know about it. What I'm curious about is it worth getting cleaned?
Oh, okay. Actually, Kevin, I think we're going to have, James hasn't looked at this. I was thinking that it wasn't 17th century, but after an artist named Jan Steen. It's the Feast of St. Nicholas. But nicely done, I think. Where did you get it? I'm sorry.
It came from Miller Publishing, actually. When they cleaned out, some of the employees got some of the pieces, and that's the one that I got.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I think, let's see, I'm just going to.
Great period piece.
We're just trying to determine who was saying that it was an original painting.
That's part of the company history, that it isn't an original. It is an original.
I think it is.
It's an original copy,
Yeah,
is what it
yeah.
is.
Well, sometimes what we run into is companies have done prints on canvas that can mimic an original painting. So if we're talking about a copy, an original, kind of like your
Atelier, that atelier method, yeah. And this is a wonderful period piece, and it ties in with the Feast of St. Nicholas, with the Christmas Carol, the whole thing. And on a piece like that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On a piece like that, of course, Bonnie can address more the artistic level of that, but I'm thinking are you talking about $650, $750 because it has that Christmas theme? It's a very, very special.
So is it worth getting clean?
Yes, and if we talk right after this, I think I have someone who would be an appropriate person to do that, who would not charge a fortune. I mean, they wouldn't be cleaning a Rembrandt. So it would be appropriate. And
Jim, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at an Andreas Atlas that is really something. Whose is this?
That's Marguerite again.
Wow. I mean, I worked as a tour guide at the Alexander Ramsey House in St. Paul, and I don't know if any of you have ever visited that. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. And Governor Ramsey in his office had prints from the Andreas Atlas. His home is in here, the Assumption Church. And this is a wonderful, wonderful book. And these now, I mean, and you're having one intact. Oh, gosh.
Well, it's not exactly intact. Minneapolis and St. Paul are in separate frames. I have them, but my husband was an attorney and he wanted them on the wall.
The big fold-outs, the color one.
The big fold-outs.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's complete.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand that. That was done very frequently, just like Governor Ramsey had the same view in his office, if you've been up there. And even with that in mind, I'm looking at about $500 to $600 on these because, and I hate to say it, when people break them apart, oh my gosh, what they're charging for the individual ones. They could be charging on certain buildings $75 or $50 on small ones. But I hate to see them cannibalized. And what's great about this is that it is intact. And somebody could decide to do that, but my gosh, you've destroyed something and you're trying to just make a fast buck. So there's a value beyond the monetary value, and the fact that this has stood this test of time is a tribute to it and the owners.
That's how I feel too.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't disturb it at all.
No, I sure wouldn't. That's,
No.
of course, that's the historian coming out in me, so.
Yes.
And who's etching? There we go. And inherited?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's by Roy Partridge. I could look up his exact dates, but it's called The Cloud. I'm seeing his pieces go at auction for probably $300 to $800. I saw some of his etchings at a retail price of $1,800. This would need to be restored because this is where we see the evidence of of acidic materials being used in the framing. So in this shape, would you be $200 or $300? Then someone would have to put some money into it, but definitely a well-known and respected artist.
Thank you.
And whose print is this?
Let's see if I can display it.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Tricia, and this print was actually found in an apartment that was being cleaned.
Oh,
it was
okay.
left behind. I did look online, and it is done by France Slana, and it's a numbered print. And I guess he was a real celebrated artist of his time.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he's from Yugoslavia.
Yes, Slovenia. Mm-hmm.
And that's about all I really know.
Mm-hmm. And he was born in 1926 in, again, a very short search. We're seeing some of his prints going for anywhere from about $200 to $300, possibly more in a gallery. I think that was at auction. There's a little bit of a condition issue here with some of the wrinkling of the paper, but I think you'd be in about that range.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Is this the grand finale? Yeah. Yes, and what can you tell us? That's such a charming image. Oh my gosh. Of course, being Swedish myself doesn't hurt.
Actually, my grandmother received this as a gift from her sister, Astrid Goransson. She had passed away in 1928, and we believe that it was done somewhere around 1920. It is both, I think it's oil pastel.
Yes.
Yes, okay, and embroidery. And of course, we named it Cinderella. It's just one of these things that you get from a family that I don't think my grandmother appreciated it much because it was pretty much left in closets.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to me, it had been stretched and it was beginning to buckle. So I had it reframed and done in a conservation frame.
Now, normally when we have art by family members, although your aunts who were nuns, who were painters, you know, it really limits the value, but I think this piece is charming enough on its own that it does have some monetary value. I mean, if I saw something like this, you know, considering she's probably an unknown artist, it wouldn't surprise me to see $600 to $800 on it in a shop. Just a beautiful, beautiful piece. And thank goodness
The face is just beautiful.
Oh, I know it. And thank goodness you saved it.
Yes.
That is wonderful.
Thank you.
And who's?
That's Paisley, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's mine. It's always been referred to as a carriage shawl in our family.
Yeah.
It was my great-grandmother's. She owned a boarding house for young women at the University of Minnesota in the 1920s, and she used it to cover her drafty windows. But since then, it's hung in my aunt's house and in my house for many, many years. But it's been in the family for a very long time. We're not sure where it originally came from.
It reminds me of a Paisley. They sometimes even called them piano shawls. Sometimes over a grand piano you would drape something like that very gracefully. And that would be in the late 19th century. Could be from that period, and then of course it evolved into different uses after that. But I could see that, yeah, and the textile appears to be in fairly good condition.
We have attempted to have it cleaned, but we have not found anyone who's willing to touch it.
Yeah, you have to be very careful on with textiles are real fussy. But those, I'm thinking maybe about $500, $600.
And here we have a painting in what?
A late arrival?
Mm-hmm.
A late 18th century?
Hi, that's mine.
What can you tell us?
I stored it for a friend from about 1976 until just recently, with many abortive attempts to return it. She lives on the East Coast, and she finally said, leave it by the dumpster. And I said, I treasure it. I don't want to leave it by the dumpster. So she made me a present of it. She doesn't want it. I am told that it is mid-19th century oil on wood. I had it appraised or looked at by the Minneapolis Art Institute. They had a clinic for people with paintings, and I don't recall what they said for a price, and I have no idea who the artist is, and neither does she. It belonged to her grandmother, and why she made me a present of it is anybody's guess, but...
Well, the Institute probably wouldn't have given you a price because they don't value anything, but they identify. And did they concur that it was mid-19th? Or
he pointed out that because the anatomy of the shoulder of the painted figure wasn't very good, he thought that that lessened, and it's not a primitive, it's...
Right.
He wasn't crazy about the anatomy of the figure and mentioned that. And that's really all I remember about it.
Well, I'm thinking, and it could use some cleaning. There are some surface issues with the paint. Really, not being able to identify artist really does limit its value. I'm thinking 3 to 5.
Yes, I was going to say 350.
Yeah, so we confer with each other. I'm thinking in this condition without any attribution at all, if you saw this at H&B Gallery, maybe you'd be in the $300 to $400 range.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
You date them, you know, so it's kind of.
Now, I will tell you this. This is where you really should have somebody who is a specialist in Navajo. You're not talking modern Navajo from the 1980s. You're talking in the 1930s.
Right.
You also have some condition issue. I can't address the value issue on this, to be honest about it with that. And in terms of cleaning, there are some good, like American Rug and Laundry. There are some very good ones. I'm trying to think over on Lake Street, there's one that has had a fairly good track record. But I would even be checking with the Art Institute, Minneapolis Institute, to say, who would you recommend? Or, of course, there's Russ Belkin Museum Services. They have done very good work with textiles.
Do you have this written down somewhere?
I can write it down.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, when you're talking Southwest and some of these, it can really be very significant in value if you're talking before the 40s, before World War II.
I'm guessing it was my grandparents were probably getting them in the 30s.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, the different colors, I don't know, yeah.
They're real treasures, though. They are real treasures.
Yeah, but not very practical. You know, they're too big to just put on the ground.
I could see somebody who likes arts and crafts using those arts and crafts stickly style. Would love them.
Beautiful.
Yep. Well, that's a treasury. Boy, that's really a find to have that many of them. But I certainly would look at having that stain taken out on the stains. Oh, yeah.
Could be.
Yep, yep.
Let's think of it as lemonade.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we know what we don't know. I think we did it.
Have we done it all?
I think so.
Thank you very much.